You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you all make a little bit more money. On this episode of the show, I have a friend of mine. We've hung out on a couple quote-unquote yachts over the years. His name is Chandler Bolt. He's the founder of selfpublishing.com. Yes, he owns selfpublishing.com, which actually I'm excited to talk a little bit about that as well, how you acquired that domain, because I know for a while it was a different company, and we'll get into some of those things as well. So he's done extremely well for himself in the online space, generated tens of millions of dollars, and helped lots of people become authors, including himself. Chandler, what's up, dude? Welcome.
Great to be here.
Conversation's long time coming.
Yes.
I feel like this was supposed to happen 7 years ago. Because did you know we have a mutual friend in common, and the first time I ever heard your name was through this guy, because he was like my podcasting mentor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know who you're talking about.
John Lee Dumas.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. It's funny because he was like the famous guy in the world for a really long time, and then he just made his money, bounced to Puerto Rico, and then just stopped. Yeah. I mean, he's still doing his show, but he just stopped going around and being at places and stuff like that. So it's funny now. I talk to people and I'm like, oh yeah, my mentor, his name is John Lee Dumas, and they're like, who? And so it's funny to talk to some of the OGs who've been around long enough to know John
Legend
really well. Yeah.
And the Puerto Rico move, I mean, that is how to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
keep it
4% flat.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, let's get into the story a little bit. Let's go back in time, because I imagine when you were in high school, was not even on your radar. And maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. So let's go all the way back in time. Tell me the first time you ever got excited, surprised, shocked by a dollar that you made. Like somebody paid you money and you're like, I can't believe this worked.
There's two memories that just come to mind. One is the first one, and it was just a distinct. My parents sent me off to scout camp with a bunch of snacks, and I came back with a wad of cash and a switchblade knife. And my mom said, "What in the world happened?" And I just quickly realized that my snacks were worth way more to other people than they were worth to me. And so I just started selling them, and I wanted a switchblade knife. I didn't have a switchblade knife, so I came out with one by just selling my snacks and drinks. So I think that got me hooked early on. Then it was a high school business. We ran it during lunch, selling snacks. Coincidentally, again, it was called Papa Poncho's. We made $8,000 in 3 months just selling snacks at lunch. And I was the president of the business, and so I got $2,000.
Did the school shut it down?
Yes, the next year.
I've asked that question to probably 500 people now, and every time somebody did this version of it, the school always steps in and shuts it down.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's a lesson within a lesson there, which was we had an entrepreneurship class, which is very fortunate. I think
really?
Basically no schools have that. But semester 1, you created a business plan. Semester 2, you run a business. Semester 1, I created the lamest business. I thought it was just so lame. Everybody else had these crazy, fancy, eBay businesses and all this stuff. And I just said, hey, I'm going to create a landscaping and lawn care and pressure washing business and call it Handyworks, which, these days you call your business Handyworks. You're getting some weird calls.
I was going to say, it actually might work to some degree. Yeah. We don't do that, but we do this other thing. Yeah.
No handies, but we are handy.
We do trim bushes, but not that kind.
We're not. We do just about anything except that. But so I thought, hey, I've got this really lame business. Oh well, created the business plan. Probably never do it, and I felt really insecure about it. Then we ran the Papa Poncho's business. That went so well that the next year they shut it down because they said, they said it was taking money from the school lunch cafeteria. And that's just because they've been doing this for years. We were the most successful business that ever existed at the school. But then a funny thing happened is that spring, I actually launched my lawn care and pressure washing business.
Did you?
And I made $10,000 before going off to college. And in hindsight, it was a learning moment for me that the most sexy business idea doesn't matter. The best business is the one that you actually build.
That's right.
And so while I was insecure that all these people had cooler business models than me, I actually did it. And I was the only one that actually started the business. And so that was kind of the first light bulb moment, selling snacks, Papa Poncho's, and then sorry, this is a really long answer, but the ultimate moment was when I got paid $500 for a moving job. It's part of Handyworks.
Really?
And I just remember me and my friend were there for a day. We made $500. I mean, we were busting it. We were running boxes into the house. And I realized at the end of the day, I just got paid $500. That's an iPod.
Yeah, right.
Kind of sign of the times, but that's an iPod. And it would have
video
taken me that's a video scroll iPod,
Right.
which in my mind, I'm thinking I would have had to work 2 months at my job, tennis court maintenance, to get an iPod. And I just got it in a day.
Right.
Whoa. What's this whole entrepreneurship thing? I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about this. And then, nothing. My life was never the same since.
Another thing we have in common, man, that was my first business too, was landscaping. Yeah, like putting in sod jobs for real estate investors who were like flipping houses, just needed some lipstick on the yard. We'd come in and clear out the yard, fix the sprinklers, put in a lawn, that kind of stuff.
Pine straw. We slung a bunch of pine straw.
Yeah, the first time I remember sitting in class, like doing the math and figuring out, because we did it like summer before my senior year with one of my best friends. And made some good money in the summer. And when you make money at that age, you feel like you're balling. I was like, I have a bank account, I have a debit card. There's like $1,000 in my bank. Like, I am rich. You know what I mean? And then school started up again, and I could not do the work on the job. So it was a constraint that caused this realization. But I couldn't actually go do the labor because I had like school and I had homework and football practice and all this other stuff and responsibility. So I went and hired college students that were local to go do the manual labor on the jobs. I remember like sitting in class one day, absolutely not paying attention, and did the math. And I was like, I'm going to make more on this personally than all of the labor on the job cost me. I didn't have to like handle manure. I didn't have to like rake a single part of, like, all I did was go to after school. I'd check on the job, make sure everything was going well. And I was done, And I was like, I'm going to make more money. It was one of the first times that I really realized that if you can generate business out of thin air, that you can make more money than anybody who's like fulfilling the work of the actual job itself. You know what I mean? A lot of big lessons from like early on days of just mowing lawns and putting in grass,
I think one of the most powerful moments in someone's life is when they realize that you can create value for someone else and they're willing to pay you for it, which is exactly what happened with both of us. You create this business, you sell the job. Oh my gosh, I just made money. I think the second most powerful moment in an entrepreneur's life is when you realize you do it through someone else. So it's what you're saying, when the job gets done and you didn't have to do it. And then it's just this.
Yeah, like, I can't believe that worked. Like, is this legal? You know what I mean? It's like, turns out that's just what business is.
It's a lever. It's leverage.
Right. So what'd you end up going to school for?
Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Which is pretty ironic.
Like, as a major?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Which, again, it's just very ironic because I think you don't go to school to learn entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But I ultimately dropped out. I ran a house painting company in college through student painters. So we have kind of the door-to-door background in common. And sold paint jobs door to door. My first year, I was number one in the company, number one in the country, and just did the business. The next year, I taught a few guys to run their business.
Yeah.
And then I just dropped out because I was learning more running businesses than I was going to school to learn business.
Yeah. So was that the business that you dropped out for? The house
kind
painting?
of. Okay. Well, actually, no. It's funny looking back. I dropped out knowing I wanted to run a business. But not knowing what business I would run.
Okay.
I just knew, hey, I've done it at that point 3 times successfully. I mean, one hit 6 figures. Yeah. And so I knew, hey, I'm going to start a business, but I don't know what it's going to be. But I have the confidence, the skill set, and a little bit of cash in my pocket. So I had 3 months of runway to figure it out, and a lot of trial and error, and ultimately started self-publishing school, which is now selfpublishing.com.
Okay. So that was right out of college then?
Yes.
How old are you?
33.
Okay. Well, so we're the same exact age then. That makes sense then. So you drop out of college. Why book publishing of all the things? Like, did you write something? Like, was it a light bulb moment? What happened?
The common thing for me is I teach what I do. And that's also the common theme. And what drives me crazy is when people teach stuff that they don't do. And so that's why I dropped out, and that's why everything that we do at selfpublishing.com is we only teach what we do. I have people, my coaches, have done the thing that they're teaching. It's kind of a core ethos. And so I was an unlikely author. I mean, I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. So I hated reading. I hated writing. I was in a lot of gifted classes growing up, but not the English one because I'm like, oh, you got to write and read. I don't want to do that. But then ultimately, when I was dropping out of school, I decided to write this book and wrote a couple books just to help people and we published the books.
On entrepreneurship or okay.
Yeah, so it was basically for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Like a bunch of my buddies, they keep saying they want to start a business. They're never doing it. And I just did it while being a full-time college student and ran a 6-figure company. So let me just write the lessons that I learned for them.
Yeah.
And so that book started popping off, started making thousands of dollars a month in royalties, paid the bills when I dropped out of school. And so then I, did what a lot of people do. I went and tried to start a totally different business than what I was having success with, which is a huge mistake
Been there.
and the dumbest thing you can do. But it's, oh, no, I don't like this, or I'm not interested in this. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm smarter than the market. I'm going to go do this. Doing it, sucks, not working. Meanwhile, everybody keeps asking about the business or the book stuff.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, okay, screw it. Let's try and sell something over here. And so we sold our first cohort of authors. And I think early on in entrepreneurship, I think you need belief and you need runway. And so I had the belief because we sold the cohort and they had a lot of success. And then that gave me just enough runway to go push all the chips in. And so that's when, before that, I didn't know if we could train other people. So I didn't have belief and I didn't have runway either. But we launched the cohort. Those people started doing really well. Then I had the belief and I had the runway. And then we just kept doubling down. And the business is just, we've done 80 million in sales since then.
What was version 1 of the product?
It was coaching and a course.
Okay.
And so a mentor of mine was, at the time, he said, don't build he said, don't build what you think people want, build what they actually vote with their wallet that they want. So he was big on not pontificating building this business without having paying customers, which is what I had just done. I spent all this money. We never had a paying customer. It was so stupid. And then he said, all right, well, how about let's just not do that this time. Let's just talk to people, ask them what they would be willing to pay for, and then regurgitate what they say back to them and say, I can help solve that problem. Here's what it'll cost. And then if they give you their credit card, they're serious. If not, it's just lip service. People who pay attention, right? And so they paid. And so the first version was, hey, we've done this successfully. We've never coached it before. We're going to coach it. This will be the best price, the best access to me that anyone will ever have, where it's a 90-day or 6-month sprint, I forget. And if you want to be the VIP, we'll one-on-one coach you. If you want to be just a regular, you'll just get access to the course and group coaching once a week. So it was $3,000 and $1,000. I want to say were the 2 tiers. Mm-hmm. And then a funny thing happened is the VIP people were more serious. So then they would always be 2 weeks ahead of everybody else. Mm-hmm. So then they would just get on the coaching calls and I would take all these questions they're asking me. I'd say, oh, cool. Let me record that video, release it the next week to everybody else. Mm. And so they were creating the curriculum. That helped create way more successful customers. That created the testimonials and the marketing assets that then fed the machine to sell it.
In the past, I mean, it's 12 years since you're running this business?
Something like that, yeah.
Have you because you mentioned, I mean, you have the entrepreneurial tendencies. You said you have ADHD. How have you been able to mitigate the distractions and stay focused on this one path?
So hard. I think the 2 most dangerous questions that an entrepreneur can ask is what's new and what's next. And ironically enough, when you go to a conference, they're the 2 questions that everybody asks.
That's what all the speakers are talking about.
Probably when me and you were on that yacht together, we're asking each other, exactly. What's new? What's next?
Yeah.
And so you feel like an idiot when you just say, oh, what's new? Not much. What's next? I'm just doing the same things but better.
Yeah.
But I found for me personally, that was the differentiator. I think it's maybe even John Lee Dumas that has this quote of focus, follow one course until successful. Yep. And so I just kept reminding myself of that, follow one course until successful. And so I found a way to have ADHD kind of side quests or entrepreneurial quests, but within the main business. So it was always coming back to the business and not trying to start off and spawn off a bunch of different businesses, not trying to ask what's new and what's next, but just focusing on doing the same thing, refining the craft and doing it at a much bigger and much better level.
What was the intention with selfpublishing.com versus self-publishing school? It
was a real estate media play.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, tons of people were talking about buying, real estate. And I just kind of realized, the most valuable real estate on the planet is the top 3 search results on Google
Mm-hmm.
for the thing that you're selling. And so how do I just own all of the top 3 or at least 3 out of the top 5? And then I realized there was a content play to be had there. So we were already doing that with Self-Publishing School, but Google's not going to rank you for multiple for that same site. So I said, okay, well, what if I just go buy other websites that are already ranking? They're poorly monetizing because they're monetizing through ads and affiliates, which is the least efficient way to monetize if you actually have a business around that thing. And so I said, they've got an underutilized asset. It'd be like having a downtown corner lot that's just, totally vacant. And I come in and say, hold up. I can put a tenant in this, and so that's what we did.
Let's make this a parking lot.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
And so that's what we did with multiple sites. We bought the Book Designer, we bought selfpublishing.com, we bought Make a Living Writing, we bought therightlife.com. We just went in and just bought up a bunch of stuff. Again, side quest, but it supported the main quest.
Mission. Yeah.
So it was kind of a way to scratch that itch of, okay, I got to be doing something new.
Yeah.
But I'm an idiot if it's not related to my core golden goose that's already making money. And so that was the first thought with selfpublishing.com. There's a whole story there. We can tell if it's interesting or helpful, but harass them until they sold it. And then we built it up as a content site. And then ultimately we realized, oh, this is the future of the company. We just need to rebrand. And so we rebranded the company.
Got it. Okay. How much do you think you invested in online media? Just in domain names alone?
A shockingly low amount.
Really?
Now, if you just counted selfpublishing.com, the Book Designer, and like 3 to 5 other sites, it would be $150,000.
Okay.
All in for those. Now, there was one voyage that was relatively unsuccessful that I learned a bunch of big lessons on. I say unsuccessful, it's probably break even. But I bought 3 sites and 2 companies, and that I paid 7 figures for.
Yeah.
But that was a huge mistake, and I think I got a little too confident and too big for my britches on that one. But I'm glad that I did it in hindsight because it taught me a new level of lessons, and it probably will save me millions of dollars when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Was it adjacent to what you were doing?
It was adjacent, but not close enough.
Okay.
And that was the big mistake that I made because we just had a process and a formula at that point where we said, okay, we know how to do SEO. We know how to do content. I know the basic numbers. If you're getting 1,000 site visits, I know we can convert 2 to 5% of those site visits into leads. I know that we can convert 5% or so of those people into customers at roughly $7,000 a pop or whatever. So I can back into my monthly revenue off of this site when I buy it. But the big fundamental mistake that I made is I bought the asset and half the traffic was totally unrelated. Not totally unrelated, but very adjacent. And I thought, oh, we'll just convince them to write books.
Yeah.
It was really stupid. So then all of my fundamental math was just wrong.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it was a side quest now that we're creating content for these people that they're not even related to our core business. So it's not in our core competency. It's just stupid. So that was a big lesson for me is I would go bigger on the acquisitions, but I would make sure that it is 100% vertical to my business.
Yeah. What does your team look like now, like in terms of size, but then also different departments?
Yeah. 55 people. We got up to maybe 65 or 70 at most, which I think is there's a funny thing about team size. It's just like penis size.
Yeah.
You show up to a conference and everybody asks you how big yours is.
Yeah. What's the head count? What's the head count? Yeah, exactly.
And so early on, you think, well, man,
really matter. Yeah.
You know, I want a big one, so I guess maybe I should tell more. I should hire more people so I can say my team's bigger. And then somewhere along the way, you realize that it's your biggest cost, and you're just at a certain point lighting money on fire because you've got too big of a team. And
right.
You've got in this business to make profit, not to make revenue. So why are you just chasing the revenue rabbit and employing all these people that you don't even need? And so I think it's a natural learning progression where now I'm in the mode of, hey, we're at 55. I'd like to get to below 50, and I'd like to keep it probably right at 50 and then double the revenue.
Yeah,
But yeah,
more of a revenue per employee type number
exactly.
Instead of total headcount.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, Greg Crabtree has a number that everybody uses revenue per employee. I think that's the wrong metric.
Okay.
He says labor efficiency rate, which seems semantics, but it's labor efficiency rate is your revenue divided by your labor, or your revenue over your labor costs. Because I think revenue per employee is a good metric. But if you say, all right, cool, I got 100 grand in revenue per employee, but then you pay all your employees 100 grand, well,
Right.
you're broke. And so you might think you've got a good number, but not. And so that's what I love about labor efficiency is it can say, okay, for every labor dollar that we spend, we get $4 in revenue. So that kind of balances what do you pay people, and then what's the revenue per employee, kind of all built into that one metric. So I really like that metric. And yes, that's a metric that we focus on. But to go all the way back to your question, 55 people, marketing, sales, operations, and like product and finance.
Okay.
All of that's kind of it's basically fulfillment and sales. I mean,
Yeah.
the way we think about it is we only do one of two things in the company is we're getting new customers or we're making customers happier.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't have to do with one of those two things, we don't do it.
Yeah, I had Guy Kawasaki on the show a couple times actually. He's the chief evangelist at Canva, and he was the chief evangelist at Apple back in the Steve Jobs days. And he told me one time he said, "You're either building something or you're selling something. Everything else is bullshit." And I was like, that's a really good way of putting it, which is essentially what you're saying: fulfilling, building, and then selling, marketing, sales. Like it's one of those two things. If you're not doing either one of those two things, what are you doing? You know what I mean? There's no real role here, or there's no real role for you here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to be doing one of those two things. And you got to be doing it really well.
Yeah.
In the online coaching space, tell me, you've been doing this for a long time now. So when you first get into a new space, it's all lights and glamour and you see all the big numbers and you get all excited. Then you sort of get behind the scenes. You start getting to know some of the people who you've glorified over the years, and you sort of start going like, actually, I don't know if I'm like this person. I don't know if I really want to be like that. I don't know if I want to be like that. Tell me what you like and what you don't like about the online info business.
The online coaching and information space, you kind of get into it and you realize that all of them are scammers. They're all lying about their numbers. They tell you their numbers, and it's not their actual numbers. It's a number that they did once.
Exactly.
That was the biggest launch of their career, and they multiply it by 12. I mean,
we do $3 million a month.
Yeah,
it's like, wait, what?
You did it once.
Yeah, right. And it was $2.8 million in expenses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was actually $3 million in sales.
Yeah, right.
And you had these massive payment plans, and you're not going to collect on any of those payment plans. And so you just realize that it's a fugazi, it's a fugazi. I mean, everybody's kind of lying about their numbers. And so that's why the running joke in the company is we're not an info marketing company. I just don't associate with that. Now, sure, is what we do, coaching and courses and all that stuff. Yes.
Right.
But I just think it's a pretty slimy industry. Now, there's some good people in there. And so I think with anything, you take the good and you throw out all the rest. And so there's a lot of people that I've learned from and modeled over the years and changed the way that we do things or leveled up the way that we do things. But I would say at its core, we're not really an information marketing company.
How do you advise people who are newer to the space when they're coming into it? Because I've gone back and forth on this because people ask me, like, is coaching worth it? I'm like, well, yes, absolutely. Like getting a coach is worth it. But also my caveat is like, just be careful who you get coaching from, because like you said, you could have somebody who really helps you unlock the next level of your business, or you could waste literally like 50 grand. You know what I mean? And for somebody who's just getting started, that's like all of their money and then some. Like they're pulling out credit cards to put this program, down on that. But then I look back at some of the ones that I did that I've invested in that were that way, and it was still in my mind, like it was still low key a win for me. Like I still pulled something out of it, or it was something that I had invested into myself and increased my belief in my ability to figure it out. Like there's some correlation between those things. How do you typically advise people to like stay away from this crowd, but also don't write off all coaching? Like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that's not a good plan moving forward either. You're like doing this on your own is objectively worse than having somebody who's been there, done that, and can like give you the code. So how do you help people figure that out?
I mean, one of my favorite mantras is who, not how. I mean, and that's a great book. It's a great concept. Anytime I run into a problem in my life or in my business, I try to ask who solved this before, not how do I solve it. So I think for most people, when in doubt, just invest. I mean, most people invest in a bunch of dumb stuff, and the return on that investment is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the best return on investment is? Yourself.
Yeah.
And your own business. And so I think, sure, can you go too far with it? Yes. You can just waste a bunch of money. But my litmus test is the person that I'm investing with, have they done the thing? Mm-hmm. Okay, if the answer to that is no, well, then that's automatically disqualified. Are they doing the thing? Mm. And so if they are still currently doing the thing, then great. Have they done it? Are they doing it? And then I would say the third level is are they making more money doing it than coaching it?
Yeah.
Because if so, those are the best people. Now, I'm not saying that has to be a cut and dry litmus test.
Sure.
Those are the best people to learn from. And so my favorite people to learn from are the practitioners that don't sell coaching.
Yeah. Because
those people are the killers. And so I just try to find those people to learn from directly, because by the time it's been packaged and commoditized, it's probably a little bit watered down, or maybe you're just talking to their team or whatever else. Doesn't mean it's not worth it, but I'm kind of like you, where I've invested, I don't know, 6 figures, maybe even over 7 figures at this point in my career in coaching and mentorship and masterminds and events and all the things. And I couldn't name one that I said, oh, wow, I wish I would not have invested in that. Because even still, even if it didn't go like I wanted it to, I still learned something.
Right.
And a lot of times it's table stakes compared to what that would have cost me on down the road. Yeah. So that's just my personal take.
When you are examining like different parts of your business and deciding, like what you talked about earlier about revenue versus profit, have there been times in your business where you prioritized revenue over profit, where you're like, we need to grow and we need to grow at all costs type of a thing? Because I've heard both of these schools of thought, and especially in the online space. Yeah. We have some people that are like, grow, no matter what, even if you're losing money, even if it's, you're breaking even, like just grow the business and it will eventually become profitable. And then there's other people that are just essentially building lifestyle businesses where they're just like, I have my business, it profits me this much, I have a good lifestyle from that, I have no intention of scaling it into a $10 million company. How have you been able to make that decision over the years? Like, are there seasons for each one of those things? Do you say profit is the ultimate goal? What's your thought?
Well, this is what I think a lot of entrepreneurs get wrong. Profit is the most important number in your business. It just is. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. So if you're not profitable, if you're going to grow at all cost, well then what's the point? Maybe it's because you're selling, in which case, okay, this is maybe it's a network effects business. So if you think Uber or Lyft or whatever else, okay, we're going to go grab the market. And if we don't grab the market, someone else will. Okay, well, then you just got to perpetually raise money. You will never be profitable for a really long time. But I think that's a horrible business.
Yeah, I agree.
The odds are, I lived in San Francisco. I saw it firsthand. These are venture capital funded businesses. Everybody's trying to grow the next unicorn. And I'll tell you, all those people wanted my business. Right. Because they said, I'm hoping for an exit 5 to 10 years from now.
Exactly.
And best case scenario, I'll sell for $100 million and I'll own 10% of the business. And so I will get $10 million, and then I'll get a massive California tax bill. Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll get $10 million because the way those venture capital deals are structured, they have preferred stock instead of common stock, and they get paid out first, and they get paid out at this multiple, and then your equity just keeps getting pushed 100%. Further and further and further and further down. Usually it's like a co-founding team of 4 co-founders. Yes. And then they take 4 rounds of venture funding. And like you said, by the time they're done with it, it's like you might on paper own 10%, but like your payout's going to be probably like 3.5%. Because
there's a lockup. Elon's a trillionaire. No, he isn't. He can't sell that stock. He's locked up for at least a year. It's all that to say, the best case scenario is you make $5 or $10 million, and they looked at my business and they said, "Oh, you're spitting off $2-3 million a year." Right. So so you have that money now, and you can live on that money now. You can invest that money now. Whereas I'm hoping to potentially get a paycheck 5-10 years ago, and between now and then, I got to live like I'm broke. Right. Even if on paper I've got some money, and so I think.
And that's best case scenario.
Yes.
That's if they can exit. Which is already
best case.
Low odds.
It's like an employee with equity. I think equity is totally worthless for most employees because, cool, you got equity. When's that worth something? If you sell, what are the odds that you sell?
Right.
And
Well, because we always hear the stories of the person who was like an early engineer
outlier
at Google or something, and they had all this stock, and if they wouldn't have left the company, and if they would have just kept their stock, it would be worth like $24 million today. And it's like, right, but there's a reason we heard about it.
Yeah.
We heard about it because of how rare that situation is.
How uncommon
like
it was.
it's not something that happens all the time. Like it reminds me, in Lion King, where they go to the elephant graveyard and it's all the bones of the elephants and stuff like that. That's what companies in Silicon Valley to me is
it's
like.
A total
it's
graveyard.
Just a graveyard of all of these massively funded companies who just never made it to that point.
Yeah.
And then the founders are on the outs, like either they get voted out of their own company or it gets sold for parts and they get nothing out of it. And the more I look at it, and on this show especially, I talk to so many business owners, and the ones that I see that are just like the happiest are always the ones that are running businesses like yours. They're low key,
bootstrapped.
They're quote unquote boring. But they're profitable and they pay the bills and they manage their stress much easier because they have money coming in.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many reasons why this is a better strategy for most people anyway, than it is to go the venture route.
Bootstrap, profitable, you own 100% of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, dude. In terms of managing your stress over the years, obviously running a business can be extremely stressful, but I mean, having a job can be extremely stressful. Are there certain things that you've done to be able to, take a beat, take a step back? Are you like sort of built for this? Like, how do you view that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think at times I've handled it much better than others. I think early on, I really didn't get stressed, which is kind of funny because it was a very stressful environment, but I had nothing to lose. And so I think that's kind of what that's the interesting thing is when you got nothing to lose, it's way less stressful. And then you make it and now you don't want to lose it because you know how hard it took for you to get it. And so I think the most stressful times has actually been years into the journey when things started going off the rails and then you just start white knuckling everything, hoping that you don't lose it. So there's keystone habits and things that I do, like my morning routine. I take a nap every day. There's certain just kind of foundational things. But some of those I need to get back to because I've noticed over the last maybe year or two, I think I've let the stress get to me more than I ever have. And so I've just kind of been taking inventory and saying, okay, why is that?
Yeah.
The business is more successful than it's really ever been.
Yeah.
So why am I more stressed by this? And sure, the people, it gets more and there's more complexity and all that stuff. But I think for me, it's going back to some of the fundamental foundational things, my faith, meditation, getting in a float tank, doing cryotherapy or cold exposure, like stuff that I just did over the years that I think, it starts going well. So you're like, I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need you try to make space and then you realize, that was the thing keeping me sane.
Yeah. What are the numbers in the business now? Like on an annual basis?
Yep. We'll probably do 10 or 11 million this year.
Okay. And when you look back at the history of the company, what were the most difficult, maybe not even stressful, just the most difficult jumps to make, like from 1 million to 3 million to 5 million to 10 million? And how did you manage that?
Yeah, there's 0 to 1, which is really hard, and getting over the million threshold. Then there's kind of that, I think they call it valley of death, and scaling up's got this really interesting valleys of death. I think it's 2 to 3 million, kind of somewhere in that range. Then there's maybe again at 5 to 7, somewhere in that range. But I know 8 figures was the big one and was the hardest. I felt like we just kept bumping up against it. And, it's to do 8 figures, you got to do $833,000 a month, basically. And so we were chasing that first $1 million month. I swear we chased that sucker for 2 years, 3 years. And it's just like, and not launches, because back to your question from earlier, we did plenty of $1 million months, but they were launches. And I just don't count that. I basically want to say, what are all the ways that you could kid yourself or lie about your numbers?
Yeah.
I'm going to do none of those things.
Yeah.
So when I talk any number, it is net revenue. So it's after returns, because if they return the product, doesn't count.
Right.
Fake revenue. I'm not making money on that. And in fact, it's costing me money because I got to pay the merchant fee both ways.
Right.
So I talk net revenue, I talk not launches, I talk evergreen. And so that's where we were trying to get to. Okay, evergreen $1 million months. And so I think 8 figures was probably the toughest part to break through.
Do you still do launches?
Here and there. I mean, we do events,
Okay.
but not really. We'll have maybe one spike a year if we do an event.
What was the unlock to get to the evergreen 8 figures?
Gosh. Everything. I mean, it's funny. It's we just started, the business just started ripping again. We went through a little plateau and somebody said, well, what happened? I'm like, what do you mean? It's just everything.
Yeah.
We fixed like 50 things over the last 12 months and it all came together. And now our marketing is better. Our sales team is better. Our culture is better. We're in person. We've got all that stuff. So I think all that to say, the big unlock for $1 million months was you've got to have scalable customer acquisition channels. You've got to have a really good team and then a repeatable process. Those are probably the 3 things that I would point to.
Is the customer acquisition, has that changed significantly? I assume I mean, like I said, you've been running this for a decade plus now. You've seen every version of Facebook ads, even becoming meta ads, and then all these updates, and then AI and targeting and all this other stuff. Has it, in your view, gotten more convoluted or difficult, or is it just like this is the new way of how it works, so we just do that now?
I think when you look at the information marketing world or the info coaching world, we're a unicorn. I mean, and when I lived in San Francisco, they would call it a cockroach business because you can't kill it. It's so crazy looking back on the 12 years and how many people that they'd say, oh my gosh, you got to do it like so-and-so. 2 years later, they're out of business.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is the next up and coming FTC lawsuit. They're shut down.
Yeah.
This person goes, I mean, we're practically a relic of the Stone Age. I mean, we have just persisted through so many different, I mean, there's so many companies that used to be major competitors. They're just out of business.
Yeah.
And then, or I almost bought them or whatever else. And I think the reason why we were able to last is exactly what you said. It's adapting our customer acquisition strategies and not being single channel dependent. The most dangerous number in any business is one customer acquisition channel, one employee, whatever it is. Single points of failure kill businesses. And so when I look back at the businesses that bombed, they were really good at Facebook ads and then their ad account got shut down.
Yeah.
Or this person was really good at affiliate launches and then that model just didn't work. And so we've always, for better or worse, I think in some ways this is a real big weakness of ours, but we've always had 2 to 3 customer acquisition channels and it has ebbed and flowed.
Yeah.
We've always sucked at ads and I've never been good at social. So that's the funny thing is everybody in our space that's at 8 figures, they're usually, almost all of them spend all their revenue on ads.
Yeah.
And then the other group is just really big on social.
Yeah.
We did neither of those. But so we took kind of a non-traditional approach where we were doing content, SEO, we were doing affiliates and business development and all that stuff. But we always had, I think it's one of the things I've done well is, okay, this is going really well. Now let me look where the puck is going and let me start investing because this business is spitting off a bunch of cash.
Play in this sandbox.
Yeah,
for a
let me
second.
just start planting seeds because we're going to need those one day. And then when something over here goes haywire, oh, look at that. That little channel that we just were kind of sprinkling seeds in for a year and with no revenue is now doing $2 million a year, $3 million a year, $5 million a year. And so I think that's what's allowed us to continue to grow, to break through to 8 figures, and then to be very durable in that process.
Yeah. On the acquisition side, do you still get the majority of your leads from like SEO and search and stuff like that?
A good amount. I would say number 1 is business development partnerships. So we have a speaking team. We speak at probably 50 to 70 events a year.
Really?
And so we've got 7 speakers.
Internal?
What do you mean?
So like you have 7 people on your team that are
full-time employees.
They're coaches or what?
They're mostly on the sales team, but some of our coaches speak.
Interesting.
Or other roles they'll speak.
Okay.
And I'll maybe speak at 15 events a year. And they speak at the rest.
Yep.
And that'll be 6 million, let's call it, this year.
Wow.
So that's a really big revenue source. Then there's probably content and SEO, although a lot of that is being eaten up by the search results and with AI.
Yeah, sure.
So that's kind of fading a bit. Now we're reinventing that with the media company that we're building, Bolt Media, and that's long form YouTube on selfpublish.com and on Chandler Bolt channel and Instagram. I don't even have an Instagram. I just started one a few months ago. So that is where we're planting seeds right now, where I look at it as year one, let's make it a 7-figure startup inside of an 8-figure company. And then years 2 and 3, I think we can get that media company to 8 figures.
Okay.
And then ads. We're finally starting to figure out ads, and those are scaling. And I think it's the most scalable channel. Now it's the least margin. But that goes back to your question from earlier on the scale at all cost. I think one thing that really broke, it was a real big realization for me, is the difference between profit percentage and total profit, which sounds obvious. It's like, oh yeah, duh. But I think for a really long time, I chased profit percentage. And then someone just showed me the math in a spreadsheet. It was someone on my team. They said, hey, look, if we spend an extra $1 million on marketing this year, here's the reasonable returns. Now let's look at that for the year. It's like, oh, our margins went down to 20%. I'm like, well, that's not good. He's like, but look at the total amount.
Yeah.
It's a lot more. So we should do that.
Right.
And then it just dawned on me. I'm like, man, I'm such an idiot. My thinking small is costing us a lot of... So in that sense, growing revenue is the best thing that you can do to grow profit. If you have a fixed cost basis that's good and in check, and then you have relatively good COGS and you've got good customer acquisition costs, okay, wow, we can really grow this business. And so all that to say, I think ads will be the thing that will turn up, and it'll be lowest margin as a percentage. But if we can add 5 or 10 million a year in revenue, okay, hold up. Well, that adds a good chunk of change to the bottom line.
How much of the sustained success would you say is related to the market that you choose? Like book write, like even, so as we used to do info stuff for podcasting, but we kept running into scaling issues just because of the lower volume of people that are interested in taking that on as a pursuit. Like there's a total, this is the last numbers that I looked at, a total of 4.5 million podcasts in existence, 10% of which are actively releasing episodes. So about 400,000, 500,000 total podcasts that are actively releasing episodes, whereas there's 1 million books that come out every year or something like that, right? So even the market selection matters to some degree, because you're just going to run into issues if there's not enough people that are interested in the thing that you're talking about. Is that part of it, you think?
I think it's part of it. I've got a contrarian take. I think that the market doesn't matter.
Really?
I think to a certain extent. Sure, do you need to have product market fit? Of course, but the market isn't going to make a company. I would argue that we are in the worst market, but with book publishing, because it is a bloody red ocean. Everybody who's ever written and published a book is like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Create a course on how I did this. And so we have all these micro-parasitic competitors that just leech on us as this whale in the industry. And so it's a very fragmented. It's not a blue ocean at all. And there's been many times where I'm like, man, this sucks. I'd rather just go to some other market. But I think what I've realized and what I've learned is that the market doesn't matter, your execution does. Yeah. And maybe your angle or spin on that market. Sure. Are there some markets that, hey, this is just never going to work? Yeah. But maybe it's not the market. Maybe it's your positioning in the market, or maybe it's the way that you're trying to capture value in that stack. Yeah. And maybe the way that you're looking at it is just wrong, and you need to go up the stack, or you need to go down the stack, or find a different niche within that market that you can better serve. So I just think for most people, the market doesn't matter, and entrepreneurs convince themselves that it does as an excuse to opportunity hop, and they change businesses every 2 years, and then they look up a decade later and they say, I've been in business for a decade. And no, they haven't. They've been in business for 2 years. They just did it 5 times.
Right. Let's talk publishing for a second. Why should somebody who's not a full-time author write a book?
It's the best thing that you can ever do to create leverage in your life and in your business. Okay. You do work once, you create this asset, that then this asset goes on to impact thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people. And if you do it right, it drives a massive amount of revenue. And so my most recent book, which Brick, you got a copy of this by chance? My most recent book has brought in $7 million in sales over the last 12 months.
Wow.
And that's just because we strategically structured the book to drive a massive amount of revenue. So people buy the book, or they just get it for free. They read it. They go on to become a customer.
And all of your books been self-published?
Yes, all 7 of them.
Yeah. What do you think is the main obstacle for people when, like, if you're looking at it like this is obvious, write a book, why don't people do it?
There's 2 big obstacles that keep people from writing a book. I think first is they don't start, so they lie to themselves. They say, oh, maybe next year, maybe someday, oh, maybe when I have time, and they just keep kicking the can down the road. We see this all the time firsthand. And then the second big obstacle is getting their rough draft done. Mm-hmm. We just see it in the data, right? We've published over 7,000 books over the last decade. We publish 2 to 5 books a day. The data is clear. If people get their rough draft done, they publish the book. If they don't, they don't, which that sounds so obvious. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it just is this demarcation point where people start to see the light at the end of the tunnel and they start to believe that it's possible, right? So once they get to that piece, their draft's done. Now they say, oh, this is happening. It goes from this pipe dream to something that they're actually making happen. And so those are the 2 big blockers, I think.
How much time do you spend writing a book? You've written 7. Has it gotten shorter over the years? Is it the same process? How many times do you rewrite it? Do you have an editing team? Like, when you're self-publishing, you obviously want to make sure that you're putting out a good product still.
Yeah,
and
of
that
course.
You're not cutting corners
Sure.
and just like putting out a book for the sake of putting out a book, right? So tell me about your writing process.
I think most people would be surprised by how quickly they can actually get their books done. And whether you're traditionally published, self-published, doesn't matter. All the real writing happens usually in a sub 90-day period. It's either right before your deadline that the publisher gave you, or it's a forced deadline that you give yourself. But we've got this thing called the 30-day rough draft challenge, where we just say, hey, write for an hour a day for 30 days straight. And in that 30 days, you'll get 1,000 words a day. That's 30,000 words. That's most of the length of a draft. And so that's how we recommend for people. But for me, this book here, I went from picking up a pen to it was published in 105 days.
Wow.
And I think I had 20 or 30 employees at the time. So I just wanted to prove that it was possible and say, hey, I'm running a business at the highest level. Well, not the highest level, but you get it, at a high level with a bunch of demands, bunch of employees. And so here's what happens if you just put your head down. And then this book was ultimately the breakthrough that helped us break through to 8 figures. Because I took the time and said, basically just told my team, hey, for 3 months, if you need me, don't.
Yeah.
Just figure it out, because I'm locking myself in and getting this book done. I mean, that's the best time that I've spent probably in the last 5 or more years, is the time I spent getting that book done.
How do you spend your time typically? Let's talk about this from the perspective of year 1 to 3 in the business versus the last 2 to 3 years of the business. What's like a average day for you?
That's a really interesting question. Early on, you got to rainmake. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. And so it was just marketing, promotion, sales. We got to get revenue. And I think that's the powerful thing about launching a business when you're broke, is you got no other option.
Yeah, right.
You're thinking to yourself, I know rent's due next month and I need the money for it. So that means we need sales today.
Yeah.
I don't got time to wait for you to make a decision next month. No, we're figuring this out right now. And so there's just this extreme clarity on, I got to get the cash register ring. And then you start bringing in a bunch of revenue, and then that revenue creates a bunch of problems. Great news, though, you got money to solve those problems. I think a lot of people, they got problems but no revenue, and just because they're not focused on revenue. So my thought from the beginning was, let's just go get a bunch of revenue. That's going to create a bunch of problems. Perfect. Now we got money to solve those problems. Let's just throw money at the problems. And so as the business grew, it became less and less just rainmaker mode, and then it's more hiring, team, process, all the things. But I think when it comes down to it, at any level, a CEO is responsible for 3 things. You need to rainmake, you need to develop talent, and you need to sharpen your strategy. So talent, you need to recruit, you need to develop, you need to hire, you need to retain, all the things. And then strategy, you need to sharpen the strategy so that your people and yourself are focused on the highest levers to create long-term growth in the organization. So for me, today, it's focused on those 3 things. And then it's auditing my calendar and saying, holy cow, I'm spending way too much time on one of these, and one of these is the bottleneck. Like this rainmaking thing is the bottleneck, or we got a really crappy strategy because I don't got my talent sorted. So then let me go spend 45 days to solve this talent piece. And I just got out of a little sprint like that where I said, this is infuriating. I'm way too in the weeds. And so I went out and hired a general manager. He just started last week. I'm deep in the trenches of training him. So if you ask me what my week looks like these last few weeks, it's very talent heavy. But the goal is so that he's running the day-to-day, and then I can get back into rainmaking and strategy and sharpening what we're doing.
What do you enjoy the most about what you do? If you could theoretically just like, all I do is this one thing because this is what I love doing.
Great question. I should probably think about that more. I think it's at a certain point you get into the business and you just say, yeah, my job's whatever needs to be done.
Sure.
Like what do I do? Whatever needs to be done to grow this thing. But I think when it comes down to it, I love the marketing. I'm a marketer at heart. It's super fun for me. And I just love that stuff. And then I would say the operations and people development. I mean, I think business is the best vehicle that exists for good. You create, if you're lucky like we are, you get to create a product and service that changes people's lives through books. Those books that get published then go on to impact thousands of people. So you're changing their life too. Then to do that, you need great team and internal staff. Well, you're changing their lives because you're developing them to be the best version that they can be to serve those customers. And then in that process, if you do it right, you make a bunch of money. And then that money you can donate to charity. You can fortify your family. You can buy your dream home, all these things. And it's a beautiful thing. And so I think that's what I love is just the game of business, developing people and trying to get this sucker to grow.
So not to go against what we talked about earlier, but what's new? What's next? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going on side quests inside my own business. We're building a media team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing. Well, I'd say two big things. We're going all in on media.
Okay.
Bolt Media is, again, 7-figure startup inside of an 8-figure company. There's the long form, which is selfpublishing.com, which is all about writing and publishing books. Chandler Bolt, which is all about scaling businesses. Okay. There's no real business over here. That's just more for fun. Then there's short form, same thing on Instagram, short form content. So we're building out the media team, and then we're building the company in person, which I think is very counterculture to what everybody else is doing. But I think remote businesses don't really scale past 8 figures. You gotta have an in-person component. And so over the last 2 years, we have flipped things to where now 20-something of our people are in person. Yeah. And so it's almost half our team, which is kind of crazy because that didn't even exist a year and a half, 2 years ago. But we're going all in on the in-person team and the media company and studio in person.
I saw you make a couple posts about podcasters charging for interviews and stuff lately. Tell me what your thoughts are on that. I'm sure you get this question a lot being like just with your students, because I'm sure that's something that they're kind of running up against when they're trying to promote their book. Are podcasts for book promotion still like something that you encourage authors to do? And then what are your thoughts on what's sort of been happening in the podcasting landscape? I think
podcasts are the best way that people can get to readers. And so I think there's a lot of inefficient ways to market a book. And podcasting is or going on other people's podcasts specifically is one of the most efficient and best ways that I've seen to sell books. Now, as far as people charging to be on podcasts, I think the whole space has gotten really scammy and just weird. Yeah. Where there's all of these people, it's all pay to play. It's almost like the middle class of podcasting has been eliminated. Yeah. And there's the massive podcast, which you can't pay to be on there. They're moving massive. Correct. And then there's, these early on podcasts that just totally suck. But the middle class is almost exclusively turned into pay to play. Yeah. Now, this is one of the more recent things that I've maybe changed my mind on. Okay. For now. I think when I first heard that, I said, this is super scammy. Mm-hmm. I was just pissed. Mm-hmm. Probably a lot of that was ego because I'm just used to going on people's podcasts and I'm never paying. And I'm going on their podcasts, and it's great. It's great for them. It's great for me. It's mutually beneficial. So I think when people started just what I felt like was doing a little bit of bait and switch, so this sucks. This is stupid. And it's like, oh yeah, we'll bring you on in the last minute. It's like, oh, well, here's the checkout link to our 10K appearance fee or whatever else. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I just got kind of pissed off and went on a big rant on that on social. But I think it's kind of interesting because, well, none of those people disclose, which is just technically illegal. So
Correct.
It's not.
It's actually
illegal. So I think that's just not a way to do it. But I think I've changed my tune on it because those people have built, if they're doing it the right way, which I think that's what's really hard to discern.
That's the main thing, yeah.
Is if everything's pay to play and then they're also using that money to just boost their stats, it's like almost like a Ponzi scheme of fake attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so
exactly,
I think that's what a lot of people are doing. And so you have to kind of separate that. But I think now I've kind of changed my view to say, all right, well, if it can move numbers and if it can move customers, well, then why wouldn't I invest in that? Just like any other customer acquisition channel.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. That was because I get asked about this a lot because that was basically my company before was we're doing podcast tours and we had an entire list of people who charge and people who don't charge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I like the reason why I was pushing it sort of at the beginning was that I was sort of getting jaded by some of these PR companies that were just like existing as these middlemen and then taking all the money. And then the podcaster, I was like, look, the podcaster's the one, like, I know how much work goes into producing a podcast.
That's a great point.
And it was like the agency makes money by placing the guest on the podcast. The guest makes money by getting traffic from the podcast. The only person that's not making money here is the podcaster themselves, the person that's putting in all the work, that incurs all the expenses, that has all of the work and energy and headache of like producing a show and trying to do a good job at it. Now, like you said, there are some people who ran crazy with that and just started throwing these wild numbers on shows that are absolutely not worth it. And people started associating higher number must mean higher traffic. Let's pay that. Yeah. And then they get jaded because they paid $8,000 to go on this show that did absolutely nothing for them.
Totally.
And so I've sort of landed somewhere in the middle now where it's like, if you can win the media for free, obviously that's the best, solution to the problem.
Totally.
But also, you have to understand if you're coming in and you are quote unquote a nobody in the space, like you're getting started and you're trying to build a brand and you're not bringing anything to the table for the podcaster other than content, it's like, well, you got to drop ego for a second and go like, you know what I mean? Because like I get like 300 pitches a month, like on a slow month for people that want to be on the show.
Yeah.
So it's like the supply and demand is wildly in favor of the podcaster because there's so many options. And for every one person that shoots me their media deck that they think is amazing, I have 14 other ones that look exactly like that one.
Totally.
So it's sort of like, okay, well, if you want the traffic, then from all the work that I've put in, from my audience to go buy your stuff, then we got to find some sort of a middle ground here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, which is why like on some of my shows, it's more like this show we usually do over Zoom or like over Riverside, you know what I mean? So I'm like, look, if you want me to incur all the extra costs of like studio space and video production and all the other stuff that goes on that, then like we charge a meager fee just to make sure our costs are covered and that and that's taken care of. And we're not incurring more costs to make you look way better when that doesn't do anything for us because the audio listeners are still going to listen to the audio. They're not going to watch the video. You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, it was like at first it pissed me off because I had this one PR company one time. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, we have a person and they'll pay to be on your show. And this is before I realized that was a thing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't charge much. It's like $500, whatever. And I shoot that over to them. The guy comes on the show. He ends up becoming a coaching client. We talked later on and he told me the PR company charged him $3,000 to come on my show. So they pocketed $2,500 to come on my show. And I was like, see, this is my problem here. Like you made an introduction and that's like, great. Okay, do your thing, but also like never send me anybody ever again. Like I'm not going to do any business with you. Like you got to disclose that to me, bro. Cause like this guy's sitting over here thinking he paid $3,000 to be on my show. Cause that's what I charge. I was like, I told him $500, dude. All I got was $500 for this. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was like, then I started, charging a little bit more. And then I was like, okay, well, we shouldn't charge that much. We tried to like average it like sort of like what you would pay on Meta. Like what's a CPM basis that makes sense for somebody if they really want to get this audience? And it's not a conversation. It's like, this is a copy and paste conversation of somebody I had on my show 4 days ago. So if like you want me to have another conversation like this, okay, well, we got to charge a little bit of something to make it worth our time. Yeah. And then it sort of just became like this almost, tug of war where now I think, ended at a really good position where it's like, okay, if you want this, then this is what it is. But if you don't want that, for free, come on, like we'll have a conversation like we normally would. But yeah, it's funny to me because I felt like there was like these two camps, and one camp was, like you said, getting super scammy super fast, where they were just like, yeah, it's 15 grand, and then we're just going to buy a bunch of fake traffic to make you feel like you got your money's worth, even though it's not going to move the needle for anything that you're trying to do in your business.
Yeah.
And then you had the other side, which was like, I would never charge. This is a scam, and everybody that does this is a scam artist. And it was like, whoa, chill out. Like, there's also a lot of other costs that go into this thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it'll normalize a little bit. I think people are smart. They catch on pretty quick, and they'll start figuring out which ones are worth being on and which ones are just fake and scammy. So be like everything else.
I agree with that. That PR company reminds me of the video I saw where, people just set up a parking stand in a free parking lot and then just sit out front and tell people it's paid parking, $10.
Yeah, exactly.
They're basically doing the same thing. It's
Exactly.
like, you just set up on somebody else's property and you're charging them to park in what is free parking.
Right. Exactly. Well, listen, dude, I appreciate you for coming on and chatting a little bit. Like I said, this is a long time coming. We should have done this a long time ago. And anytime you want to come back on, just let me know. We'll make it happen. Where can people go to get more from you and everything else you're working on?
Yeah. First place, go to selfpublishing.com/Travis. If people want to check out what we do at selfpublishing.com, they can book a call with our team and see how we can help them and walk through their book idea and that sort of thing. And then if you're interested in business growth content, check out all things Chandler Bolt. So YouTube is where we drop long form stuff every week on scaling. Instagram is 9 months. I've been in the game for 9 months, so we're just kind of getting things going there. Selfpublishing.com is all about book stuff. So selfpublishing.com, YouTube, and Instagram.
Love it. Dude, thanks so much for taking the time. Everybody else tune in. Remember, money only solves your money problems, but it's easier to solve the rest of your problems with money in the bank. So let's start there here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace.